In American society, money is a taboo topic. We're taught at a young age it's improper to talk about it, but we're also bombarded with messages about the power and importance of money in our everyday lives. And by not talking about it, we miss out on the skills and lessons we need to effectively understand and financially plan. That changes today. Welcome to Money Tales. Hosted by Sandy Brager and Cami Doder, Money Tales brings more than 35 years of combined professional experience in personal finance to demystify money and demonstrate what it's like to speak openly about personal financial matters. Join us each episode as they interview modern-day movers and shakers about how money decisions intertwine with their daily lives in order to give you better insight into productive financial conversations. Subscribe today and register for our blog Fathom at aspiriant.com/podcasts to increase your money mojo. And now, here's Cami and Sandy.
Sara Eversden is our guest this week on Money Tales. Sara grew up in a neighborhood where labels like the lower income side of town were casually tossed around. But for her, it wasn't about what her family didn't have, it was about what they gained. In a community rich with diversity, both socioeconomically and racially, Sara developed a deep comfort and appreciation for being in all kinds of environments. That early exposure shaped how she navigates the world today, including her relationship with money and identity. Let me tell you a little more about Sara. She's a leader in healthcare finance and operations, currently serving as Senior Vice President of Women and Children's Operations at Envision Healthcare. Beyond her professional accomplishments, Sara co-founded a nonprofit aimed at providing college scholarships to high school graduates from underserved populations. A 4-time participant in the Phoenix Rock and Roll Half Marathon, Sara is also an avid adventurer, having completed the Grand Canyon Rim to Rim trek 3 times.
Here are 3 key money topics Sara hits on in this conversation. First, how growing up, her family was rooted in simplicity. Today, simplicity helps ground Sara and influences her relationship with money. Second, how once she realized that money brings power, she's made sure to be on the right side of the power equation. Sara's goal has been to maintain financial autonomy and share the power with others. And third, how money gets to the heart of people. Our money stories reveal who we really are. We hope you share this episode with a friend. Now on to our conversation with Sara Eversden.
Welcome to the Money Tales podcast. I'm Cami Doder.
And I'm Sandy Brager. Cami, I've been thinking a lot about polarities recently. They keep popping up all over in the work I'm doing with clients and relationships in my life. And I've been reading a book by our dear friend, Kathy Carroll, called Hug of War, How to Lead a Family Business with Both Love and Logic. As you know, she dives deep into polarities there.
I am reading it as well, and I'm really interested about this concept of polarities. I've never thought of it the way she describes it.
For listeners, if you're not familiar, polarities are the state of having 2 opposite tendencies that are related together. So tall and short, 2 opposites, they have no relationship. If someone's tall, it has no relationship on someone else who happens to be short. That's not a polarity. Polarities are interdependent on each other. And I wanted to name some polarities that come up a lot in money conversations and in money decisions. So there's my way and there's your way.
Oh, I like that.
A lot of people think about that as it has to be an or situation. And the cool thing about polarities, when you dive into them, and Kathy does a great job of this in her book, you can find ways to find the both and. Here's a couple others. Control and trust, minimize conflict, embrace conflict, mine, ours, privileges, responsibilities. That comes up a lot, especially with the families we work with as they think about how they want to handle wealth with respect to giving assets to the next generation, as they think about making philanthropic gifts. Equal, equitable. So what is fair is really the question there. Is fair equal or is it equitable? That comes up a lot in our lives, in our society as well. Reveal, conceal. Am I going to reveal my wealth to you or am I going to keep it secret? Maybe there's a both and there.
Oh my gosh, I've got Elsa from Frozen. I think there's a whole song about that.
Good point. Security, risk, trust, control, share, and keep. Those were some polarities that come up a lot in money conversations. And the cool thing about polarities, you put them up on a board, and each polarity has a positive and a negative to it. So if you take some time, write out the positives and the negative to each of the polarities, you'll see that they are seemingly opposite one another. If someone is too far into the positive side of their pole, sometimes bringing in the positive side of the other pole can help. It's just a really cool way to get everyone's thoughts on a page. And it could even be your own if you're really struggling with a polarity within yourself. Talk out loud, get a piece of paper out, write down the polarities, map the poles, and see what comes up. And then tell us about it.
That's powerful, Sandy. I love it. And Kathy Carroll's book, Hug of War, is really great. I grew up in a family business and I found myself reading it, really reflecting on the family business. It's really powerful. Well, let's take a moment and introduce our guest today, Sara Eversden. Welcome to the Money Tales podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's our pleasure. To kick things off, tell us a little bit about yourself and share a couple key moments that have shaped your journey.
I currently live in the desert Southwest. I'm a Midwesterner that transplanted right after college. I'm the youngest of 3 kids, so I have 2 siblings. I came out here on an adventure following college, just wanted to live in a warm climate. Growing up in the Midwest, you're very accustomed to snow and cold winters, and I wanted to escape that. 3 things, just real quick, to get to know me a little bit better. Pivotal moments that shaped me today. I made a decision following undergrad to go to graduate school. And it wasn't a well-planned decision at all. It was kind of I don't know what else to do. I guess I'll go to grad school. I didn't like what other options were available to me at the time. And that really put me on a path when it comes to money and earning a living. That set me on a path and gave me the ability to be financially independent.
Sara, what'd you study?
I ended up with a master's degree in healthcare administration. I think another key pivotal moment for me was who ended up being my college roommate in my undergrad. That turned into a lifelong friendship. She's someone that I still keep in touch with, have weekly phone calls just to touch base. And we've just navigated a lot of different things from college through the age that we are now with young adult kids together. And that's been a very influential relationship for me. And then I would say, thirdly, a moment that has shaped me, or another relationship, is my husband and meeting my husband. I've been married to him for 32 years. We have 3 kids that I talked about earlier. Just his personality and who he is and the life that we've built together has really brought a steadiness and a stability to my life that I wouldn't otherwise have. So those are the 3 things that I think are pivotal. 2 of them relational, 1 of them very much educational.
Education and relationships. I too am the youngest of 3, so we can talk offline about that.
I'm the oldest of 3.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
Watch out.
this will be fun. Tell us a little bit more about growing up in the Midwest, and specifically, when did money start having any meaning to you, and what was going on in your life?
I grew up in I would call it a simple Midwestern middle-class environment. There was nothing extravagant about it. Our family went on summer vacations, camping in northern Wisconsin. We'd go to the occasional Major League Baseball game in some of those Midwestern cities. We were very middle class, went to public high schools. Our family happened to live on what would be referred to as the lower income part of the city. We were classified into that sort of a category. One of the things that I really love about that is that because of the diversity in that environment, both socioeconomically and racially, that gave me a real comfort level with diverse environments. I'm really happy about how that turned out for me.
Sara, can you say more just about that classification and how it came up in your life, and especially how it came up from a money perspective?
I don't think I realized that it was really about money so much until high school age or so. Once my world got a little bit bigger, it was the water you swam in. And then also, once you became aware of it, you would hear people go, "Oh, you live on that side of town," or just make reference to it in a negative way. That was just an interesting experience of not really realizing that you should feel a certain way about where you lived and where your life was taking place, but that was sort of placed on you by other people. And yet at the same time, it became a badge of, well, yeah, what's wrong with that?
You want to defend it?
Yeah, you wanted to defend it. You realize fairly quickly the misperceptions about different classes and types of people.
There was judgment. It had the opportunity to shift your self-identity. You kind of rose above that.
Exactly. My dad worked a white collar job, but we lived in a blue collar city. It was a John Deere town. My mom worked as a teacher's aide once I was of school age. One of the things that I really like about our upbringing, it was very comfortable. We just didn't have a lot of complexity to our lives. And the fun that you had, it was fun you made. There was a certain level of innocence involved in that too, and simplicity. And I really appreciate that now, today, looking at the complexity of life and how everything's gotten so much more complicated. And I think it roots me and grounds me in just a certain way of life doesn't have to be that difficult. It can be simple.
Do you take that forward in your life? Are you someone who values simplicity and as a result have made decisions?
Definitely.
Describe what that means for you.
For example, as I was reviewing prep for this podcast, I noticed that you might ask me for my Facebook or my Twitter. I gave that up. I got off of both of those just for that reason, just to simplify life and not have those things coming at me. And that was a conscious decision. And sometimes I want to go back to that, of course, because it's fun and you get that buzz from engaging in it, but I just don't. Other ways that I try to simplify, not living extravagantly and trying to live under our means. You don't have to always be pushing. I try not to get swept up in trying to push to the outer limits. I can remember going through the housing crisis between 2005 and 2010, and my husband and I were looking at a house. So we had to be pre-qualified for loans. We were much younger. And even then, the dollar value of the homes that they were willing to qualify us at was crazy. And we recognized that, but we weren't caught up and swept up in needing or wanting to have that really extravagant, fancy house. We didn't get swept away in that housing crisis by getting in over our heads because we sort of have the mentality of you don't have to live at the brink or at the edge of your wealth limit.
You approach your finances with this attitude as well.
Definitely.
You mentioned going to graduate school because you didn't have other yearnings at that moment. So tell us a little bit more about your early adulthood as you were transitioning out of college, then deciding to go to graduate school. How are you thinking about money at that point in your life?
I was a finance major in college. So that's funny that I really was like, I'm not really that aware of money. But ironically, I ended up a finance major. And then, as I mentioned, went to graduate school. How I was thinking about money, I really wanted to be financially independent as a young adult. The way that I was raised, while it was very comfortable, there were no handouts in my family. If you wanted something, you needed to find a way to purchase it yourself. So something other than the basics.
Even as the baby of the family.
Even as the baby of the family. I know that doesn't seem like it to some of you oldest in the family. You think the babies make out easier, but we don't always. We were paid an allowance for doing chores, and my mom was very adamant that we open savings accounts with that allowance. I can remember piling into her VW Bug with my older brother and sister on her payday, because we got paid on her payday, and driving to one of the local banks and putting our dollars, our money into the passbook savings account. And that was really, I think, a pivotal moment for me because I liked the feeling I got of seeing that balance grow in that passbook. Loved seeing that grow. Even so much so that I soon began to realize, if I could find some more odd jobs to do around the house, maybe my dad would pay me.
Oh, you're bringing to life this polarity of guidance and empowerment. Your parents are sort of guiding you, and then you got the empowerment bug, it sounds like.
That's a good word for it, Sandy. I approached him and looked for odd jobs. And so pretty soon I was ironing his handkerchiefs. I was shining his shoes. He collected pennies in a big penny jar, and I found the tubes to stack his pennies, and he would pay me for counting his pennies and getting them nicely organized. I liked the feeling, like you said, of the empowerment feeling that it gave me to have money. It gave me options and it gave me choices. that I didn't otherwise have. And so I carried that with me as I got older, started babysitting, got the summer jobs, worked as a lifeguard in the summers so that I would have money then to spend. So really wanted the financial independence and that sense of I can control my own destiny because I can make money.
Was it a yearning or was it an expectation you were trying to fill?
It was a yearning. As I got closer to adulthood, I think I really began to see no matter the relationship, the power dynamic in a relationship will oftentimes follow the economics of the relationship. And I saw that imbalance. I wanted to be on the right side of that power equation. And I could see that money brings you power. As ugly as that sounds, in America's capitalistic society, that's the truth.
I don't think it sounds ugly at all.
How do you feel about that today?
I still hold that as a belief. You can probably tell in how I'm speaking about it that it's something that is a little bit unsettling for me. Sometimes I wonder if that's a gendered behavior, but it's a reality, I think, of where we live in the United States. It's a reality of how our world works and how our economy works. And I feel because I've made the choices that I have made economically, socially, I have had the ability to build enough wealth to live very comfortably. And I feel a sense of responsibility to share that, whether it be financially or how did you build this or whatever it is, but to just be generous with whatever I have, because to hold it tightly doesn't feel good to me inside. And that's what it really comes down to for me.
Sarah, I'm so glad you're sharing this. I think this is one of the magic powers of money conversations, being able to say these things out loud. And I'm curious, how is it feeling for you in your body as you are saying these things out loud to us?
A little scary. It's a little uncomfortable to say money is power and I want to be on the power side of that. And how do I share that power? How do I not just consolidate? It can't be for me and the ethic that I live by. It can't just be about me consolidating power so that I have more and more autonomy or ability. I want to share that and spread that.
It's a me-we situation here too. I'm just going to keep bringing up polarities the whole time.
It's coming up, Sandy, naturally.
I appreciate you getting into that discomfort and sharing it because to my ears, it's very strong. It's very powerful. It's very meaningful. And so I'm glad that you are sharing this message. And I wonder, because you said earlier on in the conversation that relationships are really important to you, roommate from college, your husband of many decades. How is this money dynamic playing out in your relationships today?
Fortunately, my husband and I are very aligned when it comes to how we think about money. He was raised with a similar money ethic. Here's a polarity for you. You're a saver or you're a spender. You can be classified or segmented into one or the other. Or you're somewhere along that axis. We both happen to be savers. We don't have conflict about money. We generally align. We rarely have had conflict when it comes to should we spend on this? Should we not spend on that? So money today for us and how it comes up for us is really more around, am I thinking about this right? Do you think we should, for example, donate to this university fund for students to buy books or things like that? It's more around how much to give and not so much around how much should we spend. I think both of us just are savers and we both recognize that in each other and don't often overspend. I've never said, oh, by the way, I bought this $500 purse and I didn't tell you about it, because that seems extravagant to me because of that simple background that I came from.
So I wonder, as two savers, do both of you ever struggle when there is a need to spend, or even when you're giving money away, getting comfortable giving larger amounts away?
We probably do. We really have to talk it through and then go, okay, what do the cold hard facts say about this situation? What does this tell us? Because I think we both, from an emotional level, we come at money as savers. I'm not going to say that we're perfect, Sandy. I'm sure there have probably been times where we may have missed out. Kids provide great commentary for your life.
I do.
Little checks and balances,
If they felt like we were cheapskates or living too frugally, I think we would hear from them about that. And we haven't. We do live comfortable lives. Money plays the role of allowing us the luxury and the privilege of not stressing about money. We travel quite a bit, probably travel more than most people do, both in the US and sometimes internationally as well. we have the means to do that. And I'm grateful.
That's your shared values. You're an executive in the healthcare industry. And gosh, if I think of money and the amount of money we spend on healthcare, wow.
Let me just jump in here because I had a medical procedure earlier this week. I was thinking afterwards, this is the only thing I spend money on where I have no flipping idea how much it costs.
That's kind of the essence of the question. It's so interesting. How do you think about money in your industry? And to Sandy's point, it's so confusing. No one's there to help you understand. It almost feels like there's a tension to understanding.
I have a lot of empathy for patients and trying to understand their medical bills. And it is really a very messy industry. And there's no other industry like it where you're paying out huge sums of money and you just have no idea how that value was calculated. I would love to bring more clarity to it and make it a more transparent and obvious system. In my conversations about money in my work world, I try to be as transparent as possible. And when something doesn't make sense, call that out as I know that doesn't make sense. One of the things that I think I am particularly good at is educating. I'd much, much rather teach people to fish than continue to catch fish for them. And so I think one of the strengths that I have is being able to take financial information and distill it down into the basics and make difficult scenarios or financial information understandable.
Sarah, that's priceless.
How else does money come up in your professional life?
I am a CPA, and I have been in the role in the medical groups that I've worked in where I am managing the money. Money gets right to the heart of people, and it gets right at the heart of organizations. And that's what I love about finance and being in a financial leadership role in organizations, because if you understand and can tell the story financially of a company, you know the company very, very well. Even to distill that further, if you know a person financially, you know the person. That's how close finances are and money is to our hearts.
Yet we're taught not to share those things. We're taught to keep it secret.
You said money gets right to the heart of people and right to the heart of business. It tells you what the business or the people value.
100%. It tells you what is valued very, very quickly. And looking at a balance sheet or a P&L in a company, same thing. You can tell pretty quickly what the story is, what's happening in an organization. And as superficial as it can be, it's so complicated.
It is. And yet, in the business sense, the judgments aren't the same as in a personal financial setting. So I'm going to dive into the relationship you mentioned with your dear friend from college. How is money coming up in your friendships, Sarah? Because as a woman, we share things with our friends all the time. Are you guys talking money?
We do occasionally. We do talk money. When it comes up, it's about how we're both spending money. I see her as someone that has been an influence on me in my life and how I approach money as well. When I met her in college, you could have said that her family had more money than my family did. We were on different planes. It was very jarring to realize this whole separate world that I didn't really know existed and wasn't really sure how to navigate in existed alongside mine this whole time. And I didn't even realize it. So it was very jarring. And it made me very grateful at the same time that even though I wasn't part of that world and my family wasn't part of that world, my parents had insisted that we go to college. That was never a question that we were going to be college bound, my brother, sister, and I. And we did. My freshman year of college, it brought up a ton of feelings for me and who am I? And a lot of that transition to becoming the next version of yourself in the new situation that you're now in and going to be navigating for the rest of your life.
Say a little more about your conversations with this special friend around money. And you said you spend a lot of time talking about the spending aspects. Money Tales has really inspired me to have really deeper, more intimate conversations with my friends. And I have feelings from it. I'm curious what the feelings come up for you as you and your friend talk about money today.
Most of our conversations today, when they're about money, tend to be how are we using the money that we have to help other people? How are we giving it? She recently came into some inheritance money. There's discussions about that. She's probably one of the most generous people that I know.
Do you ever talk about how the dollars get invested?
We do talk about investment, but not at a really detailed level. We don't dwell on that piece of it very much, to be honest.
And Sarah, you mentioned that your friend has had a lot of influence on you, and I'm curious about the influence. Is it from the conversations? Is it from actions she's taking and what she's modeling?
It's both the conversations, what's going on in your life, here's what's going on in mine. And then it's also the actions of seeing the generosity. I try to pay attention a lot myself to how am I feeling? What does this make me feel like? I can tell when I get gripped by, I need that thing, or I have to have this, or I get swept up in the, I don't have that, but I'm in a crowd that all has that. And I don't like that prison feeling. That's how it feels to me in entrapment. One of the things that I feel like has balanced that out for me is conversations with her to be able to describe that feeling. And at the same time, recognizing that if I just take some money and give it away, it lessens that entrapment feeling that I'm stuck. Gosh, this is gripping me, this insatiable, I want. I feel like the Cookie Monster. I need money, money, money. And if I can just stop that and say, you know what, I'm just going to give a chunk of this to this scholarship fund or that scholarship fund or this church or that cause, it has much less power over me.
Sounds as if there's a grounding that happens when you give money away.
I think there is.
You've done such a great job modeling productive money conversations. Tell us, what's your next money conversation going to be and who is it going to be with?
My husband and I mentioned we live in the desert Southwest. All of our kids are east of the Mississippi now. And so we sort of wonder about, are we going to stay out here? Are we going to move closer to where our kids are? What is this scenario going to look like? And a lot of that is around money. What's within our realm of comfort in terms of either a stretch, getting a second place, or do you continue to just live in Arizona? What exactly do we do going forward? And so a lot of that has to do with money and planning.
Such an important conversation. Would you share with our listeners, where's the best place for them to find you?
The only place that I can be found is on LinkedIn.
Sarah, thank you so much for joining us on Money Tales and sharing your journey and sharing so much with us.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Money Tales podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, share it with someone you think would benefit from listening. And leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. Your ratings and reviews help more people find our podcast. If you're inspired to gain clarity and peace of mind about financial matters, don't hesitate to reach out to our team at Aspiriant. Go to aspiriant.com/start a dialogue. Or you can email Sandy and me at podcasts@aspiriant.com. See you next time.